All right, we're going to talk about rounding, kind of clear up some misconceptions about how to round numbers. First of all, rounding, it's if you said, oh, round 13 to the nearest 10. Well, you know how you count by tens. You say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on. And so if I said round this to the nearest 10, it's saying if you're looking at just the even tens that you count with, which one of them is this number closest to? And the first thing to do is find out, well, which ones is it between? Well, 13 comes between 10 and 20. And so then you ask the question, is it closest to 10 or is it closest to 20? And we would say, oh, it's closest to 10. So we would round this number to 10 because it's closer to 10. If I said, what about the number 37? Round it to the nearest 10. So I'm looking at this tens place and I'm trying to decide, is it going to stay a 3 or is it going to go up? Because the number 37 is between 30 and 40. And so I have to decide, is this number going to round to 30 or 40? Which 10 is it closest to? Well, 35 is the halfway mark. So 37 is closer to 40 than it is to 30. And so we would say, oh, change that 3 to a 4, and then the zeros are after it. That's kind of the idea behind it. So what I do for rounding is I say, okay, step 1, underline the number that we have to make a decision about. Like notice I underlined the 3 because it was in the tens place. That's the number I had to decide what to do with it. So I underlined it. So then number 2, now look at the number on the right and use that number on the right to make a decision. So let me show you what I mean. This is round 57 to the nearest tens. All right, so thinking about the groups of 10 like we did up above, 57 comes between 50 and 60, and it is closer to 60. But let's use this method to figure it out, okay? 57, we're going to round to the nearest tens, and the 5 is in the tens place of our number system. So we're going to look at the number right next door to it. The 7 is going to help us decide what to do with the 5. So if, it says here, if the number that's next to your place value is less than 5, then your 5 would stay the same. If the number next door is 5 or more, then we're going to round this up 1. So since the number next door is more than 5, I'm going to turn this 5 into a 6, and then of course the numbers next to it become 0. So see how this method gives us the same answer as looking at the tens here. 57 is closer to 60 than it is to 50. So this one says round 6,829 to the nearest 10. So we underline the tens place and we look at the number right next door to use that to make our decision. Since the number next door is 5 or more, then the place value that we underlined has to go up 1. So this is saying that 6,829, it was between 6,820 and 6,830. That's where it was at. And we're saying, oh, 6,829 is closer to 6,830 than it is to 6,820. And so that's why the rounded answer then is 6,830. We don't even have to really think about the 6,800 though. We can just look at the 29 and go, is 29 closer to 30 or to 20? That's how we can do our thought with this. This one says round, and this says 5 and 637 10,000ths, okay? Because this is a decimal, and I have the other video on how to read decimals properly. But the decimal itself is the word and then your place values start with tens. So, and it's a THS. This is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. So it says, in this case, it's saying round to the nearest hundredth. Anything that ends with a TH is a decimal position. So the hundredth, tenths, hundredths, this is the place value we're looking at. Remember, underline the place value they're telling you to round to. And then just look at the number next door to make the decision. If the number next door is less than 5, then your number that you're making a decision about will stay the same. So the answer here then becomes 5.06, because the 6 stayed the same because the number next door was less than 5. Now when it comes to decimals, you don't have to put the zeros on the end, because if it says round to the hundredths place, that's the only place value they want left in the answer. It would still mean the same thing if you had 5.0600, but it wouldn't be following these directions of rounding it to the nearest hundredth. We needed to stop there in the answer when it comes to decimals. Okay, here's another one. It says round 23,695 to the nearest thousand place, like the 1,000 place. So again, we're going to underline the place value that they're asking us about. The 3 is in the thousands place because it goes ones, tens, hundreds, and then 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. So the 1,000 place is the 1,000 place. And again, you just look at the number next door. This 3 either is going to stay the same or it's going to go up 1. Well, if the number next door is 5 or more, then that means this 36 here, it's closer to 40 than it is to 30. So this becomes a 4, and the rest of it becomes 0. So that's why we have, it becomes 24,000. That's rounded to the nearest whole thousand. It's also like saying, is 23,000 closer, or excuse me, 23,695, is this number closer to the 23,000 or 24,000? And we said, oh, it's closer to 24,000. All right, so this is saying round 846 and 2,719 10,000ths to the nearest thousandths, THS. So it's this is the thousandth. Look at the number next door to make the decision. So the number next door is 5 or more, so my 1 has to go up to a 2. And so that's what it does here. Round 3 and 57,962, let's see, tens, hundreds, thousands, 100,000s. 57,962 100,000ths is what this number says. We round this to the nearest thousandths. So that's this number right here. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. All right, so now we have a 9. Look at the number next door. It's a 6. So that means the 9 has to go up 1. And then so the 9 becomes a 10. So you're rounding this up to a 10, but you can't put 2 digits in this spot. Okay? So what you're going to do is the 0 is going to stay here, and that 1 is going to go over here with the 7. It's carrying the 1 basically. And so this became the 0, and this 1 and 7 is 8. So this is that same number rounded to the nearest thousandths. Now we could drop the 0 and it would mean the same thing, but because they said round it to the thousandths place, we want to make sure there's tenths, hundredths, thousandths, that the thousandths place is there. So it would have to be a 0 in order to include it.